City of Stevens Point Personnel Committee meeting, recorded October 10, 2022.
All right, Personnel Committee is called to order at 6:42 p.m. HR Manager Frosch, will you call the roll?
Alder Zarazua.
Here.
Shuda.
Here.
Shore.
Here.
Christensen.
Here.
Belton. Here.
All right, all are present. We have a quorum. Item number 2 is consideration of setting alderperson salary terms beginning in 2023 and 2024. Who would like to share the information?
I'll just roll with it. This is something we have to do prior to every election cycle because you cannot change the elected salaries midterm. They have to be done prior to the election cycle beginning. The logic behind the recommendation is the fact that we have a cost of living that's probably going to be somewhere in the 7%. We're never going to touch that. We have 2.52% that we are allowed through levy limits to increase our spending. This year, for all of the rest of the employees, we are taking that 2.52% and injecting it into our compensation, along with all of the other policies that personnel has been approving to try and attract and retain quality employees. With that, I am recommending a 2% increase to the alderperson salary. Of course, that's not a whole lot of money, being that you've got about $5,500 a year anyway, so you know that. The 2% would make it about $5,570 annually for those elected in 23, and 2% continuing into the 24 election. Those elected in 2024 would get $5,680 as their salary. Now, if we have considered this in the past, alternatives to a pay increase, you could add some additional money to your budget for your mailings and travel expenses for trainings and conferences and that sort of thing. And we could add money to that. It's, again, not much, but currently there's $8,200 in that line item for all of the alderpersons to share. That covers travel, education, miscellaneous expenses, conferences and attendance and that sort of thing. Excuse me. That is an option in lieu of the increase. You don't have to do that. You don't have to act on the budget line increase right now. Salary you do. The other option is that some other places have provided tablets for every alderperson. I see, we've got a laptop here, we've got a phone, I've seen iPads. We could provide a tablet for each alderperson and use the money for that. Now, of course, that's not going to cover everything, but we could figure out a way if that was something that the alderpersons wanted to do. So my recommendation is before you. We can do any of those things, but I would recommend we do take some action on it.
Yes, Alder Shore.
Thank you, Chair. Well, first, we have to do this by when in relation to the election?
So you have to do it before the election cycle. Before the election, rather. We typically do it before the election cycle begins, which will be December 1st.
So that it's known-ish.
Right,
yeah.
You may have people announcing earlier than that, but you can't circulate nomination papers until December 1st. Then those have to be certified on the first Monday in January. So just doing it a couple of months ahead of time makes the most sense.
I'm going to suggest doing it maybe 1 month ahead of time, and I'll say why. We have been, we've held off from doing much in the way of increases for the obvious political reason that, politicians don't like raising salaries. And I've very much been kind of on board with that sentiment. I've changed my view to a view more like, I know it doesn't make a big difference for me, but I also am more and more aware that if we look at it like it's only a bit of money and, we can afford to do this regardless, that's not a way that makes it inclusive in terms of people who it might make a bit more of a difference. And, Lord knows, this has always been acknowledged. We certainly kind of put the work in, and part of me wishes that, maybe we could peg the increase to how much my blood pressure's gone up in the last year. But the other reason I wanted to hit the pause button on this, you can tell I'm interested in maybe even a little bit more of an increase. Maybe I've been working with a different set of comparables. I must be, but I have already looked at this and see some higher numbers in some communities that may be in other parts of the state, but that are very close to us in size. So all of that to say, I think we should maybe look at a bigger increase, and not tonight.
Are you making a motion?
Before he does that, I really feel the need to do it. The reason we've done this in October every year for every election cycle is because if we wait till November, we can't budget for it. You're approving the budget in November. By making the decision in October, that allows our comptroller treasurer to incorporate any increases into the budget, so you can review it, which will be later this month, and then approve it in November, so everybody can get their Christmas card from Corey's office.
And that would seem to argue for maybe postponing by a week rather than a month.
You can certainly act at council, or if you had a suggestion now, you could certainly do that.
But you could make a change even at the November meeting. He'll be proposing, we'll be
You
approving
could.
the budget. So
This one isn't quite as bad as the one we're going to have later. I mean, we're talking about $110 per person.
Right.
So that's not a significant budgetary impact unless you're looking at a significant increase. And I can share the comparables with you. That's all public information. So I took everything from about 36,000 down to about 18,000 people, and that was where we got the average from.
Oh, okay.
We use the same kind of comparables that we did when we do our pay studies for all of the employees, the same ones that Baker Tilly uses, that Springstead used. It's pretty common that we just use the same ones that that the rest of the employees have to deal with.
I'm volunteering to put in work between now and next Monday. Maybe is a good way to put it. and come back to council.
I think that's okay. Yeah, and if you want to wait till next Monday and bring it to council with a proposal, that's completely okay. Just know that I'd really like to see, and I think Corey would like to see a decision at council.
Well, that's right. That's why I took the point about in relation to the budget and shift to using the coming week rather than the month. Sounds good.
So then you don't even need a motion in that regard.
We're just not going to act.
Yeah, make sure you get in touch with Carrie and Corey so they can plug things in. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, that was my next question.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. Forgot my role.
Any other committee members? Yes.
Just have a question regarding the 8,200. Does that normally get exhausted,
Thank you.
or is that?
No. No, generally it doesn't. And there was a small increase a couple of years ago in lieu of a salary. It gets used more than it has in the past for trainings, conferences. Sending out mailers is a biggie. A lot of you have used those to send out mailers, so that printing costs, postage costs, that sort of thing, all come out of there.
Right.
Whatever's left over at the end of the year goes back into the general fund, and we typically use that as part of our capital.
Are you saying this is where my printing costs come from?
It does.
This agenda packets?
No, the agenda packets actually come right out of the clerk's office.
Oh, good.
So yeah, we can. But if you were to, if people have done newsletters in the past or door hangers and things like that, just updates. that's where that line item comes from.
Did you have any comments?
I'm generally supportive of the increase, but we can hold off until a specific amount is proposed for next week if someone has more.
Okay, sounds good to me. We're done with that topic then? Is that all it takes? We just move on? All right, agenda item number 3, consideration of setting mayoral salary for the 2023 through 2027 term.
Same thing. There's an election in spring. We'd be looking at any increases now. Increases for mayor, clerk, comptroller, treasurer, and city attorney all are set by ordinance. So it's not like it would stay the same. It just goes away if you don't make a decision. Same thing, comparables. In this case, I listed them because it's a little more significant. It showed us where we are. We are slightly below average. We were near that last time, and with the cost of living adjustments. Keep in mind, all of the cities on this list that have elections in spring will be doing the same thing that we're doing right now. So the recommendation is the same, 2.52% is what employees will be getting, recommending a 2% increase each of the next 4 years for that term.
So moved. For purpose of discussion.
Thank you.
You seconding?
Yeah, I'll second.
Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion.
I would like to suggest just a slight change, just to put it as the salary for a full-time mayor. When I was up in Washburn, we made the move back in '91 to a city administrator, and actually have an assistant city administrator there now in a city of 2,200. Yeah, it's amazing. But it's not something, it's something I would, if we specified, then it would give us the opportunity to at least entertain the idea. Otherwise, if we put it just as a mayor position, even if it was a part-time mayor, it's still the mayor position, it would still be at this. So I would just, and maybe nothing will come of it, but it would leave the door open for a possible conversation down the line. So I would just suggest we add the term full-time mayor to that salary. But I'm comfortable with that, with the salary recommendation.
I'll certainly take that as a friendly amendment, and
Okay.
I suppose you would as well.
Actually, I don't even think that's necessary, because right now, you couldn't switch to a city administrator tomorrow.
No.
So during the term, that's going to be the mayor's salary. If you switch from a city administrator, is Logan in the other room? Logan, you want to jump in here?
Please.
Did you hear that? He was tapping on or someone was tapping on the bricks.
We can't do it in Morse
But
code.
it's
You
my
have to come in
understanding you
here.
have to do it after the terms. Logan, the question is, hypothetically, if we set the salary for 4 years for the mayoral term, and in 2025, the council determines that they'd be better served with a city administrator and a part-time mayor, what happens to the salary,
Well, it would remain through the rest of the term.
even at part-time?
Almost there.
Okay,
Yeah.
if we specify full-time mayor's salary in the ordinance that we're looking to pass, does that make a difference?
I think that's doubtful. I think the numbers are what matters from a legal perspective, not whether it's identified as full-time, part-time, or otherwise. So when you set that numerical salary for each individual year, you can't change it subsequent. It's just the rules are pretty simple, pretty clear. That's not allowed.
Okay, thank you. Good questions, because that's something that.
Right. What
Never-
if you hypothetically put it as 8,700 for every 10% of the position?
I don't know if that, because I remember the statute having to say it has to be set. The salary has to be
Right.
set.
And then
But
the salary would be
That
set.
implies a dollar amount.
Right,
Maybe,
and that's what I'm saying, 8,700 for every 10% of a mayoral position.
I think I have a question.
I don't know,
that might help. And that is, so here we are saying that this salary would be associated with a 4-year term for which someone is elected. So what maybe you could help us understand is if such a change were contemplated and enacted, that's not, the salary is not the only implication, right? I mean, someone was elected for the 4-year term. What happens in such a case? More broadly, right? I mean, so, salary aside.
These are really good questions. They're things that I've never heard before.
No, I know. It's just, it'd be nice to be able to have that conversation sometime the next 50 months, if we wanted to. And if we didn't, we might not.
Well, you can certainly have the conversation. You could.
But this would then, I would like to know before the council meeting next week whether or not exactly for sure where we're at, because I don't know, I hadn't thought of this before. It's
Sure.
only because I've been part of that conversation previously in a prior community, so I.
And they wound up going from a full-time mayor to a part-time city administrator and another part-time city administrator?
They went from at first it was just went from a full-time mayor to a part-time mayor and a full-time administrator. Now, since I've left, they actually added but I think it's part of a transition plan, actually.
Yeah.
I think.
So they're paying for 2 positions instead of 1.
For 1.5, yeah, well, exactly. But, well, I don't know how much the mayoral position is at anymore either, but.
So
Their city administrator's been there for like 14 years. Like, holy, which is
It sounds like the option, unless Logan's got something to say right now, maybe just wait till council again.
Well,
Yeah, if he could do some
I
research.
suspect what you're proposing would probably run into a conflict with the dictionary definition of the word salary. Because that is the word that appears in the statute. And any, normal definition of that word is going to be a fixed amount to be paid independent of the actual amount of hours worked. And when you start trying to say, per 10%, it sounds like you're deviating from the manner and method of payment. You're turning it into like an hourly thing where somebody's got to punch a clock. Now, has that been explored in court? Doubt it.
No.
But that's
I can
probably
see-
how it would break down, I would think.
It's possible. Could you check on that prior to next week?
Sure.
Fantastic. All right.
do we have any questions over here?
But there would not be the same problem, simply associating full-time with it, we wouldn't have the same problems, right? I mean, if that was the simple change.
No, as Logan said earlier, full-time, part-time is irrelevant.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but we have to vote on as amended?
There wasn't a motion to amend it.
They made a
There
friendly.
was talk about a friendly amendment.
I moved to amend it, and he said he would accept it as
You
a
did?
friendly.
Oh,
Yeah.
so then, yes, technically you should vote on that amendment.
Amendment first.
Parliamentary procedure says yes.
Okay.
Vote on the amendment first. We have allowed people to withdraw the motion, so I would assume that that's still appropriate if you chose to do that.
Or maybe the best thing to do would be just to withdraw the original motion and have a motion to postpone the vote until next week, until we have more.
Well, you have 2 motions on the floor right
Right,
now. You have an
right.
amendment,
But if the first.
And
if
the original that
If the original
needs
one
to-
gets withdrawn, then the subsequent one is moot.
that, I don't think that's true.
And you,
And there's nothing to amend. Well, first you're supposed to vote on the
we have
amendment.
Logan here. I
Yeah.
mean, attorney, beverage.
I would note, I'm
If you
looking
were
at a
us,
statute right
If you were
now.
us, what would you do?
There is a statute that allows an elected official to refuse to collect the salary that is provided to them by law. So
That
just-
doesn't answer that doesn't answer the question.
there's a whole system for it in here.
That's for next week.
If you were us, what would you do in terms of acting as a committee on what's been discussed so far?
And you understand what's going on, right, Logan, with,
I think if the intent is to have a discussion about the merits of a city administrator position and the associated financial impacts that that would have, that unfortunately October preceding the year in which that position is going to be elected is probably a bit tardy to have that conversation.
Understood.
Unfortunately.
Understood. In terms of acting, we've expressed a consensus of about the number, and there's this idea of adding language that expresses a related intent. Simple language, about full-time. With those issues being on the table and motions on the table, do we need to act on those now?
Well, let me rephrase that, too. You have a motion to approve and seconded. You have a motion to amend and seconded.
Okay.
If we withdraw the original motion, does that automatically nullify the second or the amendment motion? Or is the cleanest way just to act?
I'm not sure. I think once you have a motion to amend and that's been seconded, I think you just need to vote on that at that point. I'm not sure that the initial motion is fit to be acted on quite yet. You need to act on the amendment.
Or withdraw.
So what is the seconded motion that's on the table right now?
To add the words full-time to mayor in an attempt, the attempt was, if it ever went down to part-time, that the salary would have to be reconsidered,
Give
which
some, would give
is
some
irrelevant.
flexibility, yeah.
But that's
Well,
a question we're asking.
the other thing is to say, this is an advisory body. The council can act independent of it.
Right, which is
next
true,
week.
and that's what I said too. This,
So perhaps voting on the motions that are on the table would be the easiest way to move
easiest
forward.
thing, yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to stand up because it feels like I've been smoking.
You said you weren't going to stand up.
I know.
Get the stand-up guy.
Okay. Do we have any further discussion from the committee or questions for the attorney? Any comments, questions from the audience?
On either.
No, not either.
No, the
You have to
amendment,
act on
because that's what's
the
being-
motion to amend
Amendment.
is the one that's on the floor right now.
For full-time, the word full-time is the amendment.
Hyphenated.
Which you used to say.
Mine isn't
She used
hyphenated.
singular.
We
Okay,
did so well last month.
so we will have a vote on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion passes. So the original motion is consideration for setting full-time mayoral salary for the 2023 to 2027 term. Do we have further discussion from the committee on that? Comments from the audience or questions? Yes, President Johnson.
I'm not sure if that's a good idea. Good afternoon, or evening. Melissa Johnson, District 5. I have historically and repeatedly, year after year, ever since being elected to both county board and then, of course, city council, opposed any increases at all for elected officials. One time it ended up in a little bit of a shouting match with our sheriff in the vestibule of the courthouse. I have long felt that our workers, and I appreciate the hard work of all of you, my peers, and the mayor and the county executive and all the other people who are elected. However, to me, the most important people we should consider are the people we employ. And our pay plan says that we are supposed to meet the cost of living increase, which we will not be able to do this year. Our employees sort of banked on that because we approved a policy that says cost of living increase for our employees, which is going to blow that pay plan out of the water. To me, in my professional life and my public life here as an elected official, I still stand in strong stead in support of ensuring our employees get as much money as they possibly can to match that inflationary indexing. I have long stood against increases for elected officials. because the qualifications are living in the jurisdiction, no felony convictions, 18 years of age or older, and of course, the other one is always that you have to be breathing. So
That's not a requirement.
it's not, that's true.
You have to be-
Chicago, I think in
You have to be able
Chicago.
to vote.
Yeah, in Chicago, maybe it's, not in Stevens Point, we wouldn't do that. So I've held that position now since 2015. I stand with it, and will be voting against any increases for elected officials. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I
Yes.
make a brief comment? It's been a while since President Johnson and I have been in different sides of an issue. But I feel good about the faith that we have worked to keep with employees and the priority that we've put on it in budgeting. And that is part of what does make me comfortable with this. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a comment, and we'll obviously talk about this more at council next week, but when it comes to our elected officials, I know that we all have been very humble in talking about pay increases and not needing them for ourselves, any of us, as part of common council. But I know something we talk about is how does the general public stay involved in government, and how is this something that's attainable for them to feel like they're able to participate in government beyond just voting? So I think that's something that you're kind of getting at, is that, is it affordable for people? For many of us, this is a part-time thing, a side thing. People are retired and do this, but is it accessible for a person who really is passionate about making change in their community, but they are a single mother and they have to work, and this takes a lot of time to do this job? So I think that's something that we always have to consider too, is like, it might be fine for us, for the people who are at this table, to be able to be at the wages that are already in place, but is it a hindrance or a deterrent for a person who doesn't have as much income? So, just a comment. I will call for a vote then regarding increasing the full-time mayoral salary for the 2023 to 2027 term. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say no.
No.
Okay. With that, the vote passes. Item number 4, request amendment to Administrative Policy 3.02, Leaves Policies, Annual Leave Vacation, Section B.
Yeah, this is a request amendment to the policy. We're going to include, we want to include the exception that the battalion chiefs in the fire department, as they follow the fire department policy 1054.
To elaborate a little further, the changes that we made to our administrative policy last month, we found a few things that might have slipped through the cracks.
Yeah.
This is correcting one of them. The next item is correcting the other. The battalion chiefs will follow the fire department policy established by the Police and Fire Commission, so we're looking for a specific exclusion of the battalion chiefs to that administrative policy regarding leave.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the requested amendment.
All right.
And I can second.
All right. Thank you. Any comments, discussion? Alder Shore?
Thank you. So just to be clear, this is part of the, we have to defer to what the commission says, right? Because,
Yes.
Yeah, right. So we have to.
Correct. But
I guess technically you don't have to, but you will get disputes, and you'll probably lose.
let's just make it feel like we have a choice. Any other discussion?
You can always wait till council.
Let's not.
We could just disband the committees.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. All right, agenda item 5, consideration of making vacation carryover policy change to administrative policy 3.02, annual leave, section D, retroactive to April 1st, 2022.
Madam Chairman,
Want to do it? You want me to do
I'm
it?
going to be recusing myself from this conversation because my spouse may be one of those.
I don't think so.
She's got an anniversary date in between the two.
Yeah, but I don't think her name wasn't on the
Just-
list.
Okay.
Fine.
Just in case, I would rather be safe than sorry, so I'm going to recuse
That's
myself
fine.
from the discussion.
Okay.
So the policy change last month left a gap. During COVID, under the emergency orders, because people had weird work schedules, working more, filling in for those who were out sick, we allowed them to carry over up to 80 hours through that period. That period expired April 1st of 2022. September 19th, we said, that was a really good idea, and made a policy saying, going forward, we're going to do this. Anybody that had an anniversary between April 1st and September 18th that didn't utilize all of their vacation were only allowed to carry over up to 40 hours a week. There is a very small handful of people who lost vacation because they had more than 40 hours and couldn't carry it over. A vast majority of them are under 2 days. There was one employee in particular that was out on a sick leave that had lost 56 hours of vacation. That's not fair. We had another employee that had, I think it was either 1 or 2, but outside of that one employee, 2 days was the maximum. Some are less than a full day. They're an hour or a percentage of an hour, so it's not as critical. What we're asking is that we amend that administrative policy we approved last month to be retroactive to April 1st, so we fill in the gaps. Those employees that lost vacation would then have an opportunity to regain at least some of it. Obviously, going up to 80 hours, that one person is still going to lose 12 hours one way or the other, and that's with department head approval.
So, yeah, the last item was a legal have to. This feels like a moral have to, so I move approval.
Okay.
I'll second.
Any comments, questions? Anything from the audience? All right, so we are requesting to make the admin policy 3.02 annual leave, section D, retroactive to April 1st, 2022. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. And we have one abstention.
Thank you.
All right, motion passes. And item number 6, update on possible healthcare benefit changes.
So we, working on reviewing the healthcare benefit changes, we're including a possible change to the third-party administrator, and restructuring premiums to add employee plus dependent, or dependents, and employee plus one. And it's currently being, we're reviewing that. We hoped that we had something prepared here at the committee, but we are hoping that we have something that we can present to you at Common Council. But we just wanted to update you and be aware that given the market changes in healthcare, it's something that we should consider and look at. And in order to get better discounts and control our premiums, it's something we should look at. It may impact employees in relation to prescription drug formulas, brands, preventive services. It's a may. Once we get more information, we want to share that with you. And so what it really does, it's not actually changing the plan, it's just the people that administrate the benefit.
And this is just an update to let you know that we're looking at it, trying to explore those options. Again, so if you're a single parent, for example, maybe it's me and my daughter, I have to take the family plan, which is a significantly higher premium. Many companies use a employee plus one, whether it's a spouse or a dependent, and the rates are lower. So the human resources manager has been exploring not only the third-party administration to get us a better deal, but the options of adding employee plus dependent, employee plus spouse, whatever it happens to be, employee plus one, whatever they call it.
Just the relative cost to the actual plan.
We should
that
have
you
more information by
select.
council.
We did that when I was, and we looked at it, we did find, interestingly enough, that the family rate actually went up slightly because the family rate included people that had just the one, and so then by the average family size being larger, they actually, so there was still a small savings to be realized, but it wasn't as large as we originally anticipated, but it's definitely worth looking at.
Yep, and we hope to have those numbers to you, council.
Sounds good. All right, with that, our agenda is exhausted, and we are adjourned at 7:17 PM.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.